Well, hello, Team Healthy. Trying to get myself set here. Glad to see you here today on our normal Wednesday time. I was actually texting my guy Steve that heads up my marketing and all of that and sponsorship here, and I was letting him know I'm about to go live. And I was telling Steve, this is the highlight of my week. What I do here, and I love being with you guys. So I'm glad to have this time here on Wednesday with you. We're going to be talking about your aha moments with the narcissist. And by the way, Henry, I noticed you had put a comment on the live chat. And most of you are watching this tape delayed, but Henry, you said something about you're having to figure out that you're not the problem. And it reminded me of a song. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Michael Kiwanuka. I think he's in Britain right now, but I think his family of origin is in Central Africa, I believe. But he's got a song that's called "You Ain't the Problem." And look that up. I've got a whole list of Michael Kiwanuka songs. He is an incredible talent. So look up. You ain't the problem. Uh, so anyway, just look him up, and you'll understand why I recommended that. Y'all know that my wife is a major musician, and she would go nuts if she knew I was back here wanting to serenade you people and sing and all of that. But she's kind of gotten used to me. Uh, she's a much better musician than I am. Okay, guys, we've got a lot of comments here. There are questions here that I want to get into. And what I wanted to focus on here today is this whole notion that there are times when you are trying to contend with that narcissistic individual, and it's like finally over time, it's like I'm figuring this stuff out. You've heard us use the term gaslighting, and it's their whole life with you is just one long extended effort to gaslight you. And when we talk about gaslighting, we're talking about you feeling less than sure about who you are. They're wanting to undermine your confidence. But it's like, wait just a minute. So much of the things that they say and do about you is a reflection of their own unfinished business. But they don't want to admit that. What they want to say is, well, if there's any unfinished business I have, it's in trying to reform you. And so they feel like you exist to prop them up, and I'm hoping you can think, I'm on to that. And I'm not playing that game anymore. That's what I'm talking about when I refer to as your aha moments. Like I'm seeing this for what it is I see behind the scenes. So having set that up, I'm just going to go straight into the comments or the questions that we have here today. And again, those of you who are new, if you're watching live, go ahead and put your questions in the live chat session. Most of you are watching tape delay. Put your questions in the comments section, and I will get to them. That's where I get these questions here every week. And next week we'll go and I'm going to keep answering the questions until we run out. And you notice that we haven't run out of questions yet. Okay. The first question that we have, and this person says, Dr. C, if you have a narcissistic parent and a narcissistic sibling, and they are nicer to each other than the other members of the, are they nicer to each other than the other members of the family? Would the narcissistic sibling be the golden child to the narcissistic parent? This would answer a lot of questions in my family experience. uh, I think I know that I've mentioned this to you before. There's a theorist that I'm sure she's passed by now. Way back in the 1970s, when I was doing much of my training, her name was Virginia Satir, and she was one of the pioneers in helping us understand family patterns and family dynamics. And one of the things that Virginia Satir talked about way back when was how subconsciously members inside families could be assigned a particular role. You have some families where you have the family clown, or you have the one that they're kind of moody over there. You have the one over here that they're the one that's going to rescue everyone. Well, it's the same can be said inside narcissistic families. Very commonly, this person is saying that he or she has a sibling who's the golden child, and apparently there's a strongly narcissistic parent. And do they treat other individuals differently Sometimes one of the assigned roles that a person can have in a narcissistic family is that they can be kind of the right hand man or the right hand woman to the chief narcissist. In other parlance, we refer to that as the flying monkey or the enabler. And the chief narcissist is the one that says, "Here's the way things are supposed to be, and I'm in charge." And the little golden child over here, like, yeah, what she says or what he says, and they just kind of go along and gain the favor of the primary narcissist. And so, what you have is a budding narcissist in training. And then this person who's asking the questions, like, well, I didn't get that memo and I didn't go along with that. And in fact, whenever I showed up and said, well, here's my take on things, or here's how I prefer doing things, the big narcissist and the golden child can look and say, get out of here. You don't know what you're talking about. And so, is this a very common kind of situation? And the answer is, oh yes. I mean, as I started with this question, I so many times I'm drawing upon cases that I've worked with through the years, and I can't even count the number of cases where this very thing is there. One of the things that I'm hoping is that if you are the one who's on the outside looking inside this tight little system with the narcissist and the golden child, they want to make you look like you're the bad person, when in fact, no, they have a collusion with each other where they are propping up one another's unhealthiness. And so what they do is they create this exclusivity mindset. You're either in our club, and there's only two of us in this club, or you're not. You're either correct or you're not correct. And of course, correct is defined as you agree with everything I say. You're either loyal or you're disloyal, those kind of things. And they have this really strong binary thinking. And you're over there thinking, well, it's not that simple. And I have my thoughts and my feelings. And many times the person who is calling that out gets the message loud and clear. You need to shut up. You need to back off. You don't know what you're talking about. And so the narcissist and the gold child can just whittle away at your sense of resolve. But I'm hoping you can think, wait a minute, I'm on to this. Aha! This is just the two of you saying, why don't we each encourage one another's pathology? I'll let you get away with it, and you let me get away with it, and then we'll pin it all on this person over here. There's an element of triangulation and all of that. So just know what you're dealing with. Yes, that is a very common phenomenon. Now, the next question we have goes into the question of morality, and plain and simple, it says, do narcissists have moral principles? And I jotted myself a note, and the answer is yes, if it suits their need in the moment, which ultimately is no, because morality is one of these things that you just adhere to, and it doesn't just kind of flow with the mood of the moment. For example, I have had so many people who will say they grew up in a very moralistic kind of home where there was a lot of rules about what you can and can't do, but then something comes along and dad, let's say, is the biggest giver of the rules and regulations. Like, well, I don't like that one. So they do something different. And so they can have morality if it means that they can superimpose that on other individuals and guilt them or shame them into going along with that. But there's actually a deeper issue that we want to look at, and that is your sense of morality flows out of your internal integrity. And actually, integrity is the deeper issue, and morality is just an indicator of where you are in the integrity category. When you have integrity, there's just this sense that says it's not about right versus wrong. It's not about who's in charge and who's not in charge. Integrity means that you have a sense of good character, and you know that you're somebody who's interconnected with other individuals, Therefore, you make your decisions with that thought in mind. We have the term conscientiousness that flows out of that. And you know that that's one of the primary characteristics that I zero in on that tells me if a person truly has a handle on their own personal inclination towards narcissism. If you have a real conscientious mindset, then typically good things begin to flow. And so your morality is not so much a regulation. Your morality is not so much a rule or a means of controlling other people. Your morality is just an indicator that says, I like being respectful. I want to be known as loving. When you hang with me, I want you to know that I try to show consideration toward your needs and figure out how to blend it with mine. Whereas narcissists, when they look at that question of morality, it's an in versus out, correct versus incorrect kind of mindset. And guess who gets to be the one that determines what correctness is? They do. And so, too much of the time, you're going to come out losing. But do narcissists have moral principles? They have principles that suit their need in the moment, and their morality, if you want to call it that, is just simply their way of trying to keep people in line as a general rule. By the way, there are some narcissists who are almost all on the opposite end of that spectrum. It's like they are so sick and tired of having to live within somebody else's construct of morality that they just take an anything goes kind of mentality. So you can have some highly immoral narcissists. It's like the only thing that matters is me, and if I have to shove my grandmother aside in order to get whatever I want, I'm willing to do that. So some narcissists can go all the way to that far extreme. But it's important for you to realize that when narcissists talk about right versus wrong, it tends to have a very strong self-serving bent, and that's another one of your aha kind of moments. Okay. All right. This next one, and I'm going to guess that a lot of you can say, oh, yeah, I've had a variation of this happen to me. This person says, when I told my narcissist that I don't wish to speak with them and be friends on social media anymore, they hit me with this message. Can I ask you one last question? Was there anything that I did to hurt you? And if so, I'm truly sorry. Okay, I want you to think what's going on there. So this person has let it be known. Uh, I've got this narcissistic individual. They're very selfish, and I'm not finding any kind of benefit from being in a relationship with this person. So I need to move on. And so that person says, "Well, I want to ask you one last question." Now I actually interpret that is I want to gaslight you one last time while I have the chance. Did I do anything that hurt you? And the implication is because I sure can't think of it. And it can have a pseudo caring or curious kind of mindset, but it's more like, are you kidding me? Do you think that I hurt you? Because if I did, I'm sorry. And the implication is you're just complaining and whining and griping. And it's what we refer to as their covert messages. That they don't say those words. I actually hold you in low disdain, but I'm going to try to describe, I'm going to try to dress it up as concern. They won't say that, but that's what they're doing. And so when you get that, it's like, no, I'm just going to lay one on you one last time. And so, can I ask you one last question? Okay, it's what you do. And they're trying to make you out to look like you're a difficult person. The implication is because I'm over here very willing to address my issues, not, and I'm very willing to be in dialogue with you as evidenced by the fact that I'm asking you such a question. But when somebody is saying something like that, that's barely even what we would refer to as pseudo empathy, because true empathy would be, I know that we've had some struggle, and there's a lot of strain that you're feeling, and I'm picking up on that. I'd like to know more fully. How can I understand you more deeply, and what is it that you want me to know? And there's a sincerity about that, and I'm not picking up on that at all. I'm just hearing just just an exploitive or a condescending attitude. Again, another aha type of moment that you can have. The next question this person asks, how do you handle the narcissist who will tell you you're right and they agree with you about what you say about them? Okay. Then they expect you later on to never bring up the topic again in a later conversation. Okay, so let's suppose that the narcissist has been caught in a big lie. Let's suppose that the narcissist had an extramarital affair or was inappropriate in the way that they managed something, or uh, they led you to believe one thing when in fact they were doing something different. And then you're sitting down and you're talking with that person and you're explaining your frustrations with them. And you can start feeling good when that person says, I really I did blow it, didn't I? And I handled it wrong. And you're thinking, well, good. I think we're getting somewhere. And I know that if you're an empathic kind of individual, you like being able to talk about problematic situations if you can truly turn it into a discussion for personal growth. That's what healthy individuals do. So the narcissist says, "Yeah, you're a really good person and I need to listen." And then later on something comes along, and it can be later on that day or next week or 3 years from now, and something pops up in your mind and you say something that implies that you still remember the difficulty that was there between you and the narcissist, and they have quietly in their mind created a quota system. There's only a certain number of times that you're allowed to speak about that problem, and you've already passed your quota. And so what they'll do is they'll then shut you down, and it's very much a defensive ploy, and it's very much a shaming ploy. Probably one of the most common scenarios I have is when there's something really egregious like an extramarital affair. And I'll have people that'll be in my office, and it's like, we were watching something on television, and a news item came up with this person who wound up having a double life. And it's just brought back to memory some of the stuff that I had with my spouse. And I'm just, it just kind of takes me down a notch or two. Okay, that's an incredibly common kind of thing. And it tells you that many times these difficult circumstances between yourself and the narcissist don't just dry up and blow away right away. Is it okay for you to say, that's a memory of a difficult time in my life? Sometimes you just need to move on and realize, okay, that it's there and I'm going to deal with it internally. Other times it's valid for you to say something like, that those people over there are struggling. It reminds us of the time that we had that similar kind of thing. And right there, the narcissist is like, you can't say that. You've passed your quota. You can't do that. And I'm thinking, no, who we are today is grounded in what we've been through yesterday. And it's okay to make reference to that, and it doesn't mean that you're blaming and shaming or you just can't let it go. Sometimes it just means that I'm going to be processing this for the rest of my life, and particularly if you're not the kind of person that just wants to rub an individual's face in there. So what you have in that upfront thing, yeah, you're right, and I agree. You should be mad. That's a false form of humility, because it's like, okay, now will you get off my back? There's an element of control and manipulation that goes along with that. And once you see it, again, that's another aha kind of moment. Okay. Now, this one, and this kind of goes into what I've already been talking about. This next question, this person says, I really feel like I was around so many narcissistic people that I lost my own personality. And then this person says it's taken several years and I'm finally finding myself. On average, how long does it take to heal from the trauma? And that's a very difficult question to answer, because I don't know of any study that shows the average time that it takes to overcome a trauma, because trauma, narcissism, pain, hurt, all of it is on some form of a spectrum. And so what you have experienced may be way more than what someone else has experienced. And the circumstances that are in play as you're trying to come to terms with it can be different. So no two cases are ever going to come to be the same. For example, let's say that we'll just stick with that one about that somebody had an extramarital affair, and then you felt traumatized by it. And then the question is, well, how long does it take to work it out of my system? Well, let's suppose that your spouse had an extramarital affair, and it's like, yeah, and my dad did too when I was a kid. Okay, right there, that's probably an indicator that says you may have a greater difficulty than someone who's like, didn't have that kind of experience. Or it could be that you had a situation where you got burned financially, and you were right on the edge of being able to invest in something really good. Well, being burned financially there, and you had these plans with that money, it may make your response different from someone who has some different kind of things. I mean, there's going to be so many different nuances. So the question is, how long does it take to get it out of your system? And the answer is, it could be a week, it could be a year, it could be 19 years. I don't know. I know people. There's a dear, dear man when I was in my late 20s who was in his late 50s, and I won't get into it, but I got to know him through some service project kind of things that we were working on together. And he knew what kind of work that I had, where I was going. I was a young man in my profession, and he started talking about some things, and he shared some things with me from his deep past. And here he was, 50 years older than me, and he talked about how the echoing of his own father's condemning words were still in his mind, but he has to work on it every day, which is why he likes to do this, this, and this. It's very different. And so he's 79 years old, and he was still working it out. And is that a wrong thing? Does that mean he's stuck? It's like, no, but he still has a memory. And so rather than thinking, well, we have to put a timeline on this. If you've had a difficulty, you need to get it out of your system, and you need to do it in a time that's for the rest of us don't have to worry about it. The best way that I can describe it, and I've used this analogy before, is if you've had surgery. Let's say you had a knee surgery, you may walk with a limp for quite some time. And there are times when you have psychological surgery done to you and you walk with a psychological limp. And there are times when you may have a little extra tenderness, if you will, tenderness like, ouch, that hurt. Or there may be times when you just have a little bit more of a feeling of exposure, like, I just feel like, people can read me in a bad sort of way. I mean, you can have all this kind of stuff, and it's just something that can follow you. My question is not so much have you resolved it. My question is, are you in the process of resolving it? And AA has picked up on that real well. You never consider yourself to be totally recovered. You're always in recovery, and in doing so, it's like I can always find something that I can learn from my deep history. I'll be eager to find out today what that's going to be. So, how long does it take? Let's not put a quota on that. Instead, let's just say, I'm just hoping you can take your past experiences and say, I'm in a learning mode, and I'm going to be looking for other people who could use some of the learning that I have picked up on, and I'm more than happy to share it along the way. And when you take that kind of mindset, that becomes part of your healing, and let's just kind of go with that. Okay. Now, speaking of all of this, and having to get everything tidied down and in its place, this next person asked the question: would it be safe to say that narcissists see everything in black and white and cannot embrace the gray, the differences present in others, and respect them? Well, I tend to be a little wary of these all or nothing words, like everything to them is black and white. Sometimes narcissists can surprise you and have a certain good insight. For example, let's suppose that you have somebody that's highly controlling and bossy and critical. But then for a moment, they're around some other individuals that are, let's say that other person over there is struggling with a family member. And that narcissistic person may say, well, sometimes you just kind of have to cut them some slack. Okay, good. That's nice. And, it's like, that not everything fits nice and neat into a mold. Sometimes they can sneak up on that. More often than not, though, they're not terribly inclined like that, which is where this question is coming from. Are they more inclined to just go black and white? And the answer is yes. And it goes to an understanding of our developmental processes. I believe that narcissists, as a general rule, are stuck in what I refer to as their pre-adolescent way of thinking. And it's in the adolescent years and then the adult years that you begin to bring in more abstract and more nuanced kinds of thoughts and ideas. The pre-adolescent is very concrete. When you say to an 8-year-old, why should you not hit your sister? The 8-year-old is going to say, because it's mean, or you're not supposed to, or you'll get in trouble. In other words, they're concrete. Ideally, if you ask a 20-year-old, why would you not hit your sister? They might appeal to a principle and say, well, you can feel frustrated with your sister, but you can communicate it in a way that still allows for a certain amount of respect to remain. That would be the principled way. Narcissists tend not to get up to that level of thinking. They don't know how. They just think like a kid. And so if you say or do something to them, they're going to respond in childish kind of ways. And typically it's probably going to be grounded in some sort of black and white. The rule said this, you shouldn't have done that. And you're correct or you're incorrect. And they don't really learn how to sift out the nuances there. It's so fun for me as a therapist when I watch parents and let's say they have that 8-year-old. And when the 8-year-old is frustrated or annoyed at someone else, when that parent can actually sit down and say, hey, let's talk about this. Why do you suppose that you're feeling the way you are? Oh, that makes sense. Why do you suppose that other person is handling things the way they do? Let's make sure we factor that in, and then let's see if we can get an understanding of the smartest way to deal with this. When parents can go into that kind of space with a kid, they're teaching the child analytical thinking. And it doesn't have to be terribly complex, but the older the child gets, then the more in detail you can go. And then, when you get to be in your 20s and 40s and 60s and beyond, then that skill is just something you can develop on and on. Narcissists, though, tend not to have that skill at all. And maybe you didn't have that skill built in, but I'm hoping that in your aha moment where you realize life is much more than just all or nothing, black or white, then hopefully you'll be the kind of person that can say, well, I see that narcissists want to pin me down in their black and white kind of thinking, but I want to be somebody that looks at the full picture. What would that look like? And that's your way of maturing beyond where the narcissist is able to go. All right, this next one. This person, and I love this kind of question. This person says, Dr. C, can you please describe the characteristics of a person who is genuinely trying to be helpful versus a person who gives advice to everyone from a controlling, superior position? Okay. Um, it's been at least 2, maybe 3 years ago. I can't remember. I put out a video and it didn't get a really large number of views, although it's one of my favorite videos. It's called My Mentor Miguel, and then I think it's called The Ultimate Non-Narcissistic Person, something like that. But in the little thumbnail, it's me in a hospital gown, and there's an orderly in the hospital that's behind me. That's Miguel, and I was involved in a bad accident when I was 26 years old. I'm not going to get into it. Go look that up. My mentor Miguel, just put a search in, of course, after the live feed here, and you're going to get an idea of what a hero of mine is. Um, Miguel was one of the kindest people I ever met. I was at a place of real need, And his only thing was, how may my presence be a positive to you? I get a little emotional just thinking about it. When you talk about somebody who is genuinely trying to be helpful, I jotted down a few things. First, they seek very little in return from you. They just give because they like to give. They're willing to take on menial tasks. Narcissists tend not to be the kind of person that likes to take on menial tasks. They want people to take care of them. But I mean, if it's something simple like doing some cleanup stuff or doing the grunt work that nobody else wants to, uh, just little things. I've had people talk about they're at a restaurant or a doctor's office, and they're standing around and nobody says, how may I help you? The narcissist is like, not my job. Well, the kind person says, well, whether it's in my job description or not, I still want to be nice. How may I help you? And there's just a spontaneity about it. They are kind not because it's some sort of an assignment or a duty or a requirement. They're totally free in the way that they engage with people, and they freely decide to lift people up and empower and to find out what's best and to help somebody else succeed. These individuals who have genuine kindness are not just a doormat. They can still have assertiveness and boundaries, but even when they have to stand up for themselves or confront someone, they're able to do it with a tone of voice that is respectful. And you get to walk away with your dignity still intact. That's what we're talking about. And again, I want to go back and reiterate: go look up the video, My Mentor Miguel, and you're gonna hear a story about a guy who embodied all of that. Can we be that? Would you want to join me there? Here on Team Healthy, I don't want that to just be a slogan. When we talk about what it means to be in the presence of a narcissistic person, I don't want to do so in such a way that we're just pointing the finger, saying those blankety blanks. I could fill it in. They're just a bunch of jerks and they make my life miserable. Yeah, well, we can say that. But can we also say, well, because I see that other individuals are different, I so want to be a part of the better alternative. What does that look like? So that's why I really appreciate that question, and that's what it means to be on Team Healthy. I want to get beyond the narcissistic game playing so that I can live into goodness and kindness and decency and honor and boundaries and assertiveness in such a way where my presence in someone else's life can potentially make a real loving difference. It's about love. Okay. And I know you people here who are my regulars, you're with me. And if you're not a regular, become one, and then stay with us on that, because that's something I believe in down to the core of my being. Okay. Okay, now another person just asked a very simple question, and that is, can someone be a low grade covert narcissist? And I know this one came in after my webinar that I did on the covert narcissist and post traumatic stress. And the answer is, oh, yes. Let's keep in mind that narcissism is a pattern on a spectrum. And so many times you're not going to see an individual's narcissism right up front. And then, especially when we talk about the covert narcissist, that's somebody that they have a desire to be in control, and they're pretty impressed with themselves, and they have lots of critical thoughts. You're just not going to see it right up front. Or they can be manipulative or exploitive. And again, they're so good about trying to set things up in their favor, but in such a way where you don't really feel like you're being kicked in the shins. That's covert narcissism. And can you have a low grade covert narcissism? And the answer is yeah. There's some people that's their way of life. They can give the appearance of being a nice individual, and sometimes it actually is there, and sometimes it can actually feel good, and sometimes good can come from it. But then they can continually go back to the "it's all about me" kind of mentality. Did you see that? Did you notice how good I was? That eventually it rises to the surface, and something's going to happen where you have your aha moment. And typically, you're going to notice that a person is probably in that covert mode when conflict shows up. And in those moments of conflict, a certain stubbornness or a sabotaging of your good plans or a disinterest in knowing about who you are and how you feel in those moments of conflict, that's when you're going to begin seeing the narcissism. Where they want to be in control, they don't have empathy, they're self-absorbed, they're entitled, they have an attitude of superiority. But then during some of the more neutral moments, you don't see it. And that's what sets up the covert. So, can a person have a low grade covert narcissism? It's like, yeah. I mean, it's actually sort of a redundancy, covert and low grade. It's like, it kind of goes hand in hand. So, know that. And the more you see it, then hopefully that becomes your aha realization. Uh, okay, another question. This person says, whenever I bring to the attention of my soon to be ex husband something that he has done or is doing that affects me, his immediate response is, you do that too. And that's all. And there's no more acknowledgement from him on the subject. And then this person asked the question, is this blame shifting? And the answer is, oh, yeah. Uh, Absolutely. So you say there's something here that bothers me when you handled it this way, and the narcissist can come back and say, "Well, you did the same thing." Well, I guess in that narcissist mind, if they can try to point out your humanity, it's like, "Well, that got me off the hook. We're not going to talk about me." In healthy relationships, there's the old iron sharpens iron kind of thing. We can say, as you get to know me and as I get to know you, we're going to find out some of the things that are less than flattering. And strangely, that's what intimacy is built upon. When we know each other's imperfections and we're able to work with it in a constructive way, then we're able to find intimacy. The narcissist, it's like, well, if you find out something that's less than wonderful about me, then you do it twice as bad as me. And so it's like, never never mind. And you wind up having to establish your boundaries or move forward in your healthy initiatives, knowing that you're just not going to get a very enthusiastic and comrade kind of a mindset from them. They just don't do that. It's really childish. And also, when the narcissist refuses to accept the fact that you see something difficult in them, it also represents their shame based way of thinking. In a narcissist's mind, it's like, well, if I admit that I've said or done something that could be inappropriate or at least difficult, that means I'm admitting I'm imperfect, and I'm ashamed of the fact that I could be imperfect. I have to look good. And so narcissists have this hidden subconscious self-loathing that they're really trying to cover up. And so when they say, "Yeah, but you did it too," that's where they're coming from. And when I do videos and when we have these Q&A times and we bring these things out, that becomes part of your aha realization. Okay, there's more going on than what you see on the surface, and I want to know what that is so that I can respond in a more adult kind of way. Okay. Now, this next person says, I've discovered that my husband of 20 years has narcissistic behaviors. I've let him know that I know this. And then it says, he says he's willing to go to marriage counseling, but I don't know where to start. Now, it all depends on how far down the spectrum that husband is as to whether the marriage counseling is going to work. From time to time, when I would have couples in my office, it would be a wonderful delight when each partner would say, I have my detractions and I have my difficulties, and I'd like to learn how to blend better and to take more responsibility. Every now and then, I would get two people in my office at the same time who had that same goal, and we could really get somewhere good. More often than not, though, you have one person who's more dedicated to growth, and you have the other one that's there that's saying, well, my partner here thinks that I'm supposed to do something different, but I got news for you. That other person's the issue. And so, how are you going to approach marriage counseling? One thing I will say, not to do, don't go into the therapist's office and say, "Oh, I'm married to a narcissist," because immediately that person is going to think, "Oh, you just called me a dirty name," and their defenses are going to go up. And so, if you're trying to work through this in counseling, be descriptive, as opposed to saying this person in front of me is a narcissist. Let it be known there are times when I feel like there's a control agenda here, and I am constantly trying to guess how I can satisfy that person's control agenda. That's what I'm dealing with. Okay, you're describing a strong element of narcissism, but you're giving focus into something that you can sink your teeth into. Or it may be that you'll say something like, to me, in order for us to get through our difficulties, we need to have greater empathy and an understanding. And one of the things that I want is for us to learn how to communicate our understanding of each other, especially in moments of difference and conflict. Okay, again, you're describing an aspect of narcissism. You're not saying that person's a narcissist, but you're saying this is something that I want to focus on. And so you're more likely to get a little bit more traction if you can be descriptive as opposed to simply slapping a name on somebody that they're going to not like at all. So okay. Now, let's wrap here for today. There are plenty of other questions that I could get into, but what I'm hoping is that as we zero in on you having these aha moments, I'm hoping you can be wise enough to say, when I'm with somebody that continues to perpetuate strain and difficulty, someone in this equation, and I'm going to say that someone's going to be me, needs to be smart enough to go behind the scenes and ask, what does this mean? What's driving this behavior, or what's not being spoken that I need to be aware of? And that's where this knowledge is power mindset that I talk with you about comes so much into play. And over time, as you begin seeing the trends and the patterns that are there, that's when those aha light bulb moments can pop on, and that's the game plan that we have. So keep learning. See yourself as being a lifelong student, and as you do, I'm hoping you'll have more and more of these aha moments, and it positions you then to have your healthiness, even if that person in front of you says, "I'm not joining you." It's like, okay, I see that, I realize that, but that's not going to slow me down. I'm going to be the healthiest version of myself as I can be, because you see, I'm on team healthy. That's what I want us to do: dignity, respect, civility. All right, guys, send the questions in. I want to hear from you. Then this time next week, we're going to get right back and crank it up and do it all over again. I truly appreciate the efforts you're making to be a better version of yourself, and I genuinely appreciate you allowing me to be a part of that discovery process with you, guys. I will see you next time. See ya. Bye.